Part 1. Fracture. Chapter 1. Hum in the dust. Slumping low over the desert mountain, the sun cast a tired gold across dust and stone. His trail runners crunched gravel, each snap a jab from the earth. The path twisted upward, scrub and slumped rocks framing a peak that stood silent, daring him to unravel its riddle. Sweat traced his temple, vanishing into a scruffy beard. 40 years marked his face, not in lines, but in a quiet, watchful gaze. He adjusted his pack, water sloshing against his back. A familiar weight, unlike the city's sirens and screens he ditched at dawn. Eyes squinting at the sprawl, cactus spines glinting, air dry and harsh. Fractured, every piece stood alone, mirroring visions that once ripped through his skull, futures sharp and uninvited. Doctors called it sickness, shoved pills his way. He saw it as a hum to chase. Years back, he'd tossed the meds after another failed exit attempt, more than once, more than twice, each time clawing back from a dark he'd courted. He shouldn't be here. Yet the hum buzzed in the dust, a thread he'd tracked through hikes and glitchy bass lines. The mountain hummed too, mocking his ragged breath. All things are full of gods, Plato whispered in his head. The dust didn't look holy, just restless. Still, it clicked, every shard pulsed with the rest, a sprawl he'd joined by outlasting the shadows. He breathed deep, sage stinging his lungs. The trail bit back, a rhythm he'd felt since the dark loosened its grip. The peak loomed hazy ahead. He stepped on, gravel snapping, a quiet win over a void that couldn't keep him. Gravel spoke beneath each step, a language of resistance, persistence. Childhood teachers had marked him disruptive, inattentive, wrong. School corridors once stretched like this path, impossible, mocking. Now, Scrublin whispered vindication, 40 years earned through refusal to dissolve, nearly a decade sober, climbing away from bottles that promised oblivion but delivered only fragmentation. Dust rose, settled on sweat-damp skin. Particles clung like memories, each a small universe containing multitudes. Breathing hurt, everything worthwhile hurt. Pain meant presence, meant survival, meant he defied those clinical predictions scrawled in manila folders. Multiple attempts to exit existence, each a dialogue with nothingness, each ending in stubborn return. Sunlight fractured against a distant peak. Some called this a wasteland. He understood better, recognized the austere discipline of things that refuse to perish. Cactus spines penetrated sky, geometric proof of adaptation. The kingdom of God is in your midst, not in cathedrals, but here in ruthless beauty that persisted without permission or praise. Shadows lengthened, time stretched, contracted. His heartbeat, steady now after years of chaos, matched the mountain's patient pulse. Hiking became meditation, became survival, became worship. The distinction between these states, artificial, a societal construct. Like the boundaries psychiatrists drew around his consciousness. Water sloshed against his back, diminishing resource, finite promise. Nearly 9 years since his last drink. One day at a time, one step at a time, one breath. Halfway up this slope, breath came hard, reminded him how fragile this arrangement remained. 40 years inhabited, each day improvised, undeserved. Scrub brush clawed from parched earth, stubborn botanicals refusing surrender. Childhood classroom corners once held him likewise, body still while mind scattered through cosmic distances. Teachers complained, cannot focus, disrupts others, lives elsewhere. They never asked where elsewhere might be, what wisdom might dwell there, what hums might resonate in a child's skull that textbooks couldn't capture. Wind carried dust, eons of pulverized existence. His footfalls added negligible disruption to ancient arrangements. Geological time made his struggles microscopic, yet the mountain received his weight, acknowledged his presence through a resistance. Path steepened, lungs burned. Pain concentrated his wandering consciousness into singular purpose: continue, ascend, despite professional opinions, despite pharmaceutical warnings, despite multiple attempts to cease this journey permanently. Sweat-mapped rivulets down temples, spine, chest, salt crystals, miniature universes formed at fabric edges, body's chemistry asserting itself. Once he'd tried erasing this equation, tipping the balance toward dissolution. Hospital lights had hummed, then too, artificial approximation of the vibration he now followed upward. Clinical voices labeled his perceptions. Illness, imbalance, intervention required. None heard what he heard. Cosmic background radiation translated into neural impulses, signal beneath noise. Peak summoned like an oracle, promise without guarantee, vision without clarity, nearly 9 sober years hiking towards something unseen but felt. Sobriety itself, not absence but presence, not lack but attention. His steps found rhythm in loose scree, compensation for unstable ground. Adaptation, the lesson wilderness taught while childhood classrooms demanded conformity. Here, rigidity meant failure. Flexibility meant survival. Midday shimmered, distorting distant horizons. Heat waves bent light, reality itself, malleable, subjective. His visions once came uninvited, sharp-edged futures slicing through consensus reality. Medication dulled these ruptures, promised normalcy, but normalcy meant blindness, meant missing the vibration connecting dust to stars. Diagnosis, psychosis. Translation, seeing too much. Sensitivity to patterns others missed. Childhood teachers' frustrated notes. Distracted by nothing. Not nothing. Everything. Silence expanded, contracted. Desert acoustics amplified minutia. Lizard scurries, insect wings, his own heartbeat. Sound without language. Communication beyond symbol. The hum persisted, not hallucination, but recognition. Something primal called through stone and sky. Something ancient understood his presence here. 40 years earned through resistance, persistence, survival despite himself. Breath syncopated against exertion. Lungs expanded, contracted. Inhale. Particles transported across continental divides, Pacific currents, jet streams. Exhale, carbon joining atmospheric ancestry. Boundaries, illusory constructs. Mind separated from matter. Self separated from world. Madness separated from wisdom. All artificial demarcations, all gods, as Plato whispered, dwelling in each fragment. Even fractured consciousness contained divinity, climbing unified disparate selves, the diagnosed patient, the failed student, the multi-time survivor of his own extinction impulse, the 9-year pilgrim of sobriety. 40 years collapsed into single moments of footfalls on stone. Progress measured not in distance, but attention, presence. The kingdom within reached not through effort, but recognition. Cactus spines became sacred geometry, evolutionary adaptations revealing mathematical truths, divine proportion in natural defense mechanisms, beauty in necessary harshness. The mountain's silence contained all possible sounds, all potential wisdom. His own mind, once deemed broken, similarly held multitudes, visions that tore through perception, not malfunction but glimpses beyond conventional seeing. Sun tilted westward, shadows elongating like stretched truth. Gold light burnished stone surfaces, revealing mineral complexity, invisible at noon. Perspective shifted everything. 9 years sober had taught him this. Reality changed with angle of observation. Multiple suicide attempts had failed to erase his existence. each a confrontation with nothingness that paradoxically affirmed something. The mountain's hum vibrated through bone and tissue, now no longer distant. Connection established through persistent climbing. Path narrowed, loose rocks skittered down slope with each step, tiny avalanches marking impermanence. His childhood drawings once captured this. Cosmic patterns teachers dismissed as scribbles. Prescribed medication later blurred these connections, promised relief through disconnection. The trade, comfort for truth. He'd rejected the bargain, chose instead this harsh ascent, chose the hum in dust and stone over chemical quiet. Summit remained distant, hazed by atmosphere and exertion. The mountain mocked his pace, his presumption. Yet he continued, one foot before another, simple algorithm for complex journey. The peak's oracle remained elusive, promising nothing but possibility. His breath came ragged now, body's protest against ambition. Mind expanded into spaces his lungs couldn't reach. The mountain hummed, the dust stirred, the path stretched on.